most often, I think our ideas are shaped by what we believe. And what we believe is usually the lies that we tell ourselves. And it couldn't just be the lies, but it's also the truth that we tell ourselves, right? The things that we tell ourselves shape our life. And therefore, what are we telling ourselves?
Time to grow.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Grow Podcast. We're so excited you could join us. Please subscribe and like the video, and choose the notification bell as well so that you don't miss any other episodes.
Hey guys, this is Amo. He's my partner in crime, and he's my confidant. Today we're really excited to explore some cool topics with you guys.
This is Josh, and I'm his Robin to his Batman. So, Josh, what's been cooking lately?
Funny as it sounds, I've recently gotten hooked on this television series of late called Alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's this survival series about people braving themselves in the Alaskan, upper 40 and braving themselves in the cold and surviving for 100 days or so,
Is it with Bear Grylls? No, right?
It's not.
Okay.
But what's interesting is this whole idea that people can push their priorities, their families, and all of their life circumstances to get to this place where they can really choose to live by themselves and survive for 100 days, and then they get this huge reward. Yeah, I think probably $500,000 or something like that, right?
Not bad for 100 days.
Yeah, for sure. But what is interesting is what got me really thinking about this particular episode was these two contestants who push all the way to the end, right? One guy, of course, wins it and takes home $500,000, but then there's this other guy. He just gives up one day before the guy who wins it, and I think if I'm right, that was the 98th day.
So 2 days left.
Yeah, one
but
more.
Did he know that there was 2 days left?
I don't think so. He knew that because they're alone and they don't talk to each other and stuff like that.
So basically, it's 100 days max, and it's sort of like who can last the longest.
Yeah.
Aha. Okay.
I mean, it's not like 100 days the prescribed, but you can get to 100 days, right?
Okay.
So the max is 100 days, and therefore, one guy makes it all the way to I think 99 days, and then there's another guy who almost gets to 98 days, but then on the 98th day, he quits. And the reason that he tries to convince himself about is the fact that, family is more important. And the guy who stays for the 99th day, he looks at it from the perspective that, all this money that I'm going to win is going to make my family's life so much better. So it just got me thinking on the idea that, there are so many things that we tell ourselves. And some of them could be even lies. But then these lies that we tell ourselves to take us to a place where it defines our system of belief, and therefore it defines our actions and motivations and the way we, carry out the critical decisions and actions in life. And think about it, right? Two guys, same situation, same requirements, same set of rules.
Yeah.
But the one guy chooses for the family to have money, which will make them happy, versus one guy chooses to forfeit the money for the family. Right?
Which one was believing the lie? Which one of those?
I don't know. Either way, but if you think about the fact that, at least for the guy who stayed on for the 99 days, right? If you think about it, he probably believed in the lie. In my opinion, I could be wrong. You could correct me. I mean, you guys can let us know in the comments. The guy who stayed for the 99th day probably thought that money could buy something extra for them as a family. What you don't already have. Yes, but does that equal happiness? Is what got me thinking. So in that way, I think it's still a lie. Why? Because, I had written down this. I think I better read it. The greatest source of a person's suffering is the lies that they tell themselves. And if you come to think about that, most often I think our ideas are shaped by what we believe. And what we believe is usually the lies that we tell ourselves. And it couldn't just be the lies, but it's also the truth that we tell ourselves, right? The things that we tell ourselves shape our life. And therefore, what are we telling ourselves?
Okay, let me take you a couple of steps back though.
Sure.
So there are lies that we tell ourselves that, from what you said, that lead to the greatest suffering. Maybe unpack that for me. Like what?
So, for example, as a child, somebody tells you, you're not going to make up to anything. You're not going to amount. Your life is not going to amount to anything, right?
So that's a lie.
That's a lie.
So we've
Somebody
identified
spoke
the
that lie over you.
Yeah.
But you internalize that and you keep it inside and you brew on it. And it just grows with you as you grow older to a point where you come to this place where every time things go wrong, you're like, yeah, now I know why it went wrong, because somebody said, this is what I'm going to become. Right? So it's this sort of, I don't know if you want to call it a self-fulfilling prophecy,
right?
But in a certain way, it's what you've believed all along.
Yeah. Let me play devil's advocate here though, and then unpack from what you're saying what I think, right? Like, not everyone is great, right? Like, not everyone can achieve. Like, let's say if your passion is photography or podcasting. Not everyone can be great in it, right?
Yeah.
There's some truth to that. Like, let's say now, but basically you're saying, from what I understood, what you're trying to unpack is that if someone once is passionate about photography and they're consistently failing, it could be because they believe a lie that they would never achieve any greatness or anything good, right?
Could be. In that example, yes.
But I think what's also interesting, and this is why I wanted to unpack it by first of all, like, sort of playing devil's advocate, is I think the lie is also a belief that you need something to have value, right? And that's what's interesting about the story you told about these two guys in the wilderness, right? The one guy thought, and I mean, it could be true, right? Like, if you live in a very small house, having money can give you that comfort of living in a bigger house and being more comfortable with your family, but it won't add any value to the love, to the sustenance that family has, right? And then maybe going back, so if you believe that you need to be good at something, going back to that example that you gave, you're basically putting more value on that than the fact that you're already valuable. Right? Is that have I sort of hit it on the nail a little bit? Or
yeah, of course. I mean, that's what it is, right? If you boil down, it comes down to the idea that, okay, if you value yourself on the basis of your own assessment and what God assesses or God promises you to be, right? Or have created you to be. But any other way is where if you let somebody else define that value for you, I think that's one point where you could easily lose focus of what is important to you and what God has invested in you. But at the same time, right, it's also the element of not just having doubt in your own self, but it's also having to shape your life according to things that would have been said about you,
Mm.
and letting that form the narrative of your whole existence.
Yeah, that's a good one, and maybe I can throw in a personal example, right? And I mentioned this to you last time. Currently, our eldest, he's getting into a bit of trouble in school, etc. And at the heart of it, he's a sweet kid. He's a good kid. He's a bit of a troublemaker. He has a little bit of energy. But the interesting thing is now he's turning, like previously, it used to get him into trouble, and it was like a duck off of water off of duck's back, right? Like it didn't bother him. But now there's this narrative he's creating around himself and his belief. You know, he's saying, "I can't help it. I'm a bad kid," type of thing. And it's interesting because I approach it two ways. I'm either like, "Nope, that's not the truth. That's a lie. No one ever, at least not at home, we never tell you that, you know, like you're destined for terrible things. Don't believe that." But the other truth is also, I feel like it's become a bit of an excuse. Like it's, instead of facing the responsibility, instead of saying, "You know what, I've made a mistake here. Hands up, let me look at this and approach it from a place of humility and say, you know what, my bad, I've made a mistake, I'll try to do better." It's becoming an excuse. So it's these two things where he's forming this narrative, and he's maybe looking at himself and saying, "Look, I'm up to no good all the time, so this is just who I am." But then at the same time, it's sort of becoming an excuse for him, right? Like where he can't look at himself in the mirror and say, "You know what, I could do better." So I've started, and that's exactly what I've started to say, especially this week. I said, I look at him, and in the morning we practice it together, where we look at the mirror and we just say, "I could do better. I could do better," so that he can understand, yeah, maybe there's certain things that are not acceptable in society, and he does that, but he can do better to understand, you know what, this is not me, and I can do better, and there's a way out. Am I kind of hitting it on the nail for you?
I mean, what you're actually doing is emphasizing on the value of him, you know, building a narrative on not the things that has been branded on him, but the things that could be reshaped.
Yeah.
Right. So there's incremental value coming out of the idea that you can reshape your narrative, right? Which is the truth that you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
Which is the truth.
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, it's never that somebody else can define what your value is. It's never that somebody else can tell you who you are. It's never that somebody else can, you know, tell you that you're not enough. Isn't it?
Yeah.
But yet, in today's world, we let everybody else define that for us, right? For example, we define our self-worth from comparatives on social media. We define who we are on the basis of who somebody else is, right? We let somebody else's idea creep into our mind to form ideas about our own selves. So that being said, I think these three things are still the fundamental lies, right? It's about, you know, letting somebody else define who you are, letting somebody else tell you that you're not enough, and let somebody else define what you are.
It's absolutely fascinating. There's 2 points I want to sort of pick out. I think one thing is, and we sort of were talking about it yesterday with you and our very faithful and fun cameraman. We were having such a great conversation about this one kid you mentioned who sort of was branded as a troublemaker himself, and then there was just that one teacher that believed in him, that sort of went against that narrative that kid was believing or feeling was expressed towards him.
Yeah.
And because of that one person who believed in him, he sort of changed. Like you mentioned, you know, like his whole trajectory changed. He's a changed kid, etc. So that just that one positive message about him changed the perception he had about himself. And that changed him. That's one thing that I wanted to discuss. And then the other one reminds me of a story that I heard. There's this man who, as a young boy, by mistake, broke his dad's favorite watch. And he was so afraid of of how the dad would act that he never really told the truth about it. And I think, I mean, I don't know what kind of thing that person was going through, like, but as a kid, imagine carrying that all your life, carrying that guilt all your life. And I'm assuming he was very, he had that feeling of guilt, right? So he ran over someone and killed a boy at a later stage in his life. And so it was a hit and run. He didn't take responsibility. He ran, but then somehow through technology, etc., they found him, and the police came, and then they took him to jail, and he was being interviewed. And they asked him, what made you run away? And then he went back to that story, and he said, a long time ago. It's not something that just happened today or this week. It's a long time ago. This fear of not dealing with myself or taking responsibility, and it's sad because it was a lie. He was living off of a lie. Like, I'm sure the dad would have been mad at that point, but because he kind of didn't fess up to the dad, and then just probably believed, this is how I deal with things. This is who I am. I'm a person who runs away from problems. I'm a person who runs away from failure. Kind of reminds me of that story as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really impactful story. I mean, if you break that down, it again comes to the fact that you let something define your idea of value, and you let something build a certain understanding as to how you would react to a situation such as carrying guilt in life, where it prescribes the whole narrative of how he would do that for himself again and again, right? So, I mean, what is interesting is the fact that sometimes we believe in the lies that others speak over us, but sometimes we believe our own lies.
Yeah.
Right?
That we speak to ourselves, right?
Yeah. The lies that we speak to ourselves, and we believe them as not just truth, but we believe them as the so-called mantra for your life, and that shapes all our decisions and actions, and it adds color to everything that you do.
I think what's interesting here, and to sort of conclude, and I'm sure you have a few interesting words for us as well, is what Paul says in Romans, that we have to renew our mind every day. And I love how he says every day. It's not just, renew, once a year, end of the year, renew your mind. Like, he's saying renew your mind every day. And then I ask myself, how do you renew your mind? And I mean, we'd have to look up the Bible verse, but I'm sure we'll put the link below in the descriptions. But it says renew your mind by sort of connecting with God, by reading the Word, if I remember the context correctly. And that's how you sort of move from the lies that you tell yourself, the lies that other people told you, to what is actually the true, the true thing that God has spoken over you.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting to the point that we've broken down the problem, right? But how would a person deal with the lies that they're going through, right? Of course, you said one, it's through the constant renewal.
Yeah, every day,
yeah, right?
Yeah,
and I think the second thing is the fact that there's a standard for truth, right? And the standard for truth is the idea that you are able to, establish, for example, I just take, I know we are out of time, but then I just want to take a moment, right? So if you go to burn, right, you have these scales, which are established as these scales of measurement, right? And the first ever scale that any physical measurement were used for are in Bern, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, you should check that out one time, right?
Bern, by the way, is a city here in Switzerland.
And so what you see is the fact that somebody established the yardstick. Somebody established the yardstick saying, oh, you know what, this is what you call as a standard meter. This is what you call as a standard centimeter, right? So then every time people were in doubt, they could go back to this place to measure and say, oh, okay, this is still a centimeter. So you need a yardstick. And I think that yardstick is the word of God, right? And then that yardstick helps you to replace the idea of what is truth and what is lies, or, reinforce that idea. So I would say renewal, reinforcement, and then the third element is, the Bible says that Jesus is the truth. So the relationship. So I think the 3 R's, which helps us to really focus on how we can, not let lies decide who we are, or what we are, and if we are enough or not.
Can you say those 3 R's again?
So the 3 R's, renewal of the mind, reinforcement of truth, and relationship with God. I think that sets the baseline for how you establish the foundation of truth in your life.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I hope there was some nuggets in there that you could learn. And remember those 3 R's. Subscribe. Please press the like button, and see you in the next session. Cheers.
Cheers.
Time to grow.